Yes, I'm ready.
All right, we're going to start the meeting. I would like to welcome everyone to the regular meeting, Board of Directors, Monterey Peninsula Water Management District for Monday, January 21st, 2021 at 6:01. Roll call, please.
Director Paul,
Here.
Director Riley,
Here.
Director Anderson,
Here.
Director Adams,
Here.
Director Robertson,
Here.
Director Edwards.
Here.
All directors are present.
Thank you. Can we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which we stand, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Any additions and corrections to the agenda? General Manager?
No, there are not.
Thank you. Next item will be recognizing our outgoing director, Director Dave Potter, for years of exemplary service. General Manager.
Well, it seems like just yesterday we honored him for years of exemplary service, and then he went and got himself elected mayor and reappointed. Interestingly, his first departure from us as the supervisory representative was 20 consecutive years of service, replacing Sam Karras all the way back in 1997. He's leaving us now because the Mayor Select Committee has decided to rotate the position a little more, and Mayor Potter has given us 2 years of additional service on behalf of the mayors. And we have a lovely parting gift, which is a little challenging to transmit via Zoom, but Arlene, if you're on, do you have that? Or Joelle, did she hand it over to you? Yeah, if you can just.
Oh, nice.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, what is it? So it's a silver frame of the Carmel River, which obviously Mayor and as supervisor, he provided exceptional stewardship for the Carmel. And this will be delivered to his home at some point here in the future after I drop into the office to pick it up. And if anybody would like to express any parting platitudes, please feel free to join in.
Thank you. Any board members? Director Adams, do you like to say anything?
Thank you. Yes, I do. Dave, it's been short but sweet. I'm glad we had the opportunity to go to Washington together. That was a really good thing. But I think more importantly, it's given us an opportunity to get to know one another in a very different way. And I'm very thankful that I'll be able to continue to work with you in your role as mayor and my role as supervisor. And I'll look forward to that, whether it's talking about water or something different. Take good care of yourself. And I know that you're definitely going to be keeping busy.
Thank you, Mary. I appreciate it.
Director Rowley.
Yeah, sit down, Dave.
Be nice, George. What are you? Is it cold where you are? Are you in the North Pole or somewhere?
It's cold in my house because my heater went out. So
I know a good contractor.
Yeah. Well, I just want to say, Dave, that we've had kind of some pluses and some minuses, some ups and downs, and that kind of goes with public life, I think.
Exactly.
But I feel like you've always been pretty straight, to me at least, and I'm not speaking for anyone else. But I always felt like we had something to say to each other, sometimes pro, sometimes con. But what I found, it was very enriching. It was very satisfying. It was very alive. And I just appreciate that so much because you didn't pull any punches. I don't know that I pulled any punches, but it just made for a great dialogue, and I appreciate it and I respect it. So thank you.
Appreciate you saying that, George. Very nice.
Mayor Robertson, do you want to comment?
Yes, I certainly do. Dave, I'm trying to think how far back we go. And it's got to be 35
30,
years.
34 years, Clyde. You're actually the one who made the mistake of getting me appointed to the Architecture Review Committee. I remember Dan said he had somebody else in mind, and you said, well, I know Potter. And, I'd like to put him forward. And I opened up the paper the next day and I was on the Architecture Review Committee. It's been downhill ever since.
Yeah, there you go. Well, we never had the opportunity to be on the council together. I don't believe my memory here has senior moments at times. But Dave, I've always valued you make a good decision. You never hold a grudge. You have a vote, you win, you lose, you get on with it. And you know what? That is such an important attribute, I think, especially on the national level. Working together, getting the people's business done has always been your prime motivation. And so you're always approachable. I appreciate that. Even this morning, we had an excellent meeting. And I value you very much in all of your roles, and also agreeing with the idea maybe it's time to rotate the mayor representative on the water board to give everybody a chance. I'm looking at maybe a couple of years, and then we'll see if someone else would like to step up. So I just really appreciate you.
Thank you, Clyde. I've always appreciated working with you. You know that.
Yes.
Vice Chair Paul, you have anything?
Kind of put on the spot
But
there. We don't really know each other well.
Dave, we have only overlapped for one meeting, but I know that you have served the public for many, many years and still are. And I just learned from Mayor Roberson that you wisely agreed to rotate the mayor delegate representative. And I think that's a good thing. And I respect that. I wish you well.
I appreciate that. I think everybody should suffer in the water world accordingly.
Director Anderson, do you have anything? Director Anderson, you on mute.
I've known Dave. He's known me since, I don't know, 20 years, since he was on a supervisor. And we had some agreements and disagreements. And I was thinking maybe I scared him off the board here. I don't know. But I know that you have a lot to do, Dave. And I learned some things in the meetings when I attended virtually, listening to you and your analysis of things. So I thank you for that. And best of luck with the challenges you have in front of you with Carmel.
Thank you. And comments from me, Dave, you brought up 1997. That's when I got on the board. And those first 13 years were pretty up and down. But you were there to help get me through them. And especially that 4 years that we had a big change in the board. You were that vote that really got me through it. So I appreciate everything you've done for the district. I also appreciate you moving aside, and saying somebody else take a chance. I listened to that meeting with the mayors, and you stepped right up and say it's time for somebody else to do it. There wasn't no arguments, no ifs and buts. But Dave, I'm going to miss you, and please stay available because we still have the pack. And I want to make sure that you are in there because you really helped out. So, General Counsel, do you have anything?
Thank you, Dave. It's been a long, long time. I don't know if you recall, you were the mediator for dispute with Cheer for Kids many, many years before you were on the council. So we've gone back a long ways. We've seen a lot of issues, and it's been a wild ride. Thank you. I really appreciate your stewardship.
Thank you, David. Appreciate it.
Director Potter, you can have the last word, sir.
Thank you, Alvin. I appreciate the opportunity to just say, not goodbye, but thanks for the memories, guys. Honestly, you've said it very well. We don't always win our arguments, but we can do that respectfully, courteously. Clyde, your point that it'd be nice if we could do that at the federal level a little bit more. I don't know whether the water board's indicative of what federal government should look like, but at least we've been respectful. We've had our disagreements, but we've done so very, very professionally.
Mhm.
You know, there's an old adage that said, may we live in interesting times. I really didn't intend to live in this interesting a time. And it's kind of a challenge, no doubt, but it's really, really become so many issues come to the forefront so pointedly at such a, kind of a, confrontational period in this history of this country and the history of the district. I hope we can move forward with the water projects that we have in mind, whether it's, obviously we want the pure water project to come forward. We want to make sure we get off the river. Let's try to go ahead and mediate the issues and go ahead and try to work through these professionally, courteously. I was not welcomed with open arms when I came back to the district, but when I did say, could we get beyond the Measure J issues, and could we realize that the public spoke and they want to move forward with the acquisition of Cal-Am? So let's do that. Let's stop talking about whether this is a growth issue or whether that was the agenda of Measure J. It was not. And I think that when I said that, to get compliments from some of the people who were opposed to my joining, I think you guys know who you were. You sent me a very, very nice email saying, Dave, really appreciate you stepping forward and saying, let's forget about this Measure J growth, no growth issue and get on with the public's business. That's what we're supposed to do as elected officials. We're supposed to do the public's business. I want to thank you guys for the time together. Alvin, we go back, way back. Dave, you and I go way back to the days when I remember Ron Cheshire pulling out a bottle of whiskey at the board meeting, offering Molly Erickson a drink and saying, Molly, you want a belt? I mean, I was one of the most interesting, maybe one of the most low points in my political career, also from a public demeanor standpoint, but it was pretty hysterical. And you have to sit back every once in a while, learn to laugh at yourself too. We're always on the stage. I've always said that, like officials, being a little bit like public theater. You're on the stage some days you're in the audience, but it's all public theater. Mary Adams, I want to say to you, I've really enjoyed working with you. You were right. It was good to get to know you better. We're working on issues together now. I know we had our suspicions about each other, but honestly, I think we're doing a great job these days. And thank you for your leadership over at the county. Yeah, I would not want your job at all. And I told you that the other day, and you said, "Why didn't you warn me?" I didn't know it was going to be this bad. Honestly, I really didn't. But I really appreciate everybody's collegiality when we go through these times. So thank you all very much. It's been my pleasure to serve. It's been a unique, and it's been an interesting pleasure. Thank you all, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you again, Director Potter.
It's cocktail hour here at the Potter household, so I will be leaving you.
We'll be right there. Whiskey.
Not during the meeting, I hope. Thanks,
All right.
guys. Ciao.
Thank you, sir. Take care of yourself.
Absolutely.
See you soon, Dave.
You betcha. Can't avoid it.
Okay, now we're on oral communications. Anyone wish to address the board on consent calendar, information items, closed session items, or matters not listed on the agenda may do so during oral communication. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. The public may comment on all other items at the time they are presented to the board. Joe will open up oral communications, 3 minutes each.
So attendees who are attending by Zoom can use the raise the hand function, and callers can use the, Joelle, is it *9 on
R9,
Zoom?
that's correct.
Yeah, *9.
So we have Susan, and I'll go ahead and ask her to unmute her mic.
Hi.
Susan, you may present your comment.
Thank you very much.
Before you begin, let me go ahead and share my screen. So that way, go. And then you may present your comment now.
Thank you. I want to thank Mayor Potter for his service as well, if he's still in the room, so what? Anyway, he's done a lot for the board, apparently a lot I didn't know, and he has a long history of public service here, and I'm sure he will be going on to other adventures, so we look forward to seeing what that is beyond being mayor of Carmel, which right now is certainly a big job. Congratulations to the district and to Monterey One on receiving the U.S. Department of Interior's Bureau of Reclamation $15.5 million grant for Pure Water Monterey. Receiving 40% of the entire grant fund shows how pioneering and innovative this is. PWM truly epitomizes the intent of the department's focus by all of its criteria, including both urban and agricultural applications, and implementing a sustainable, environmentally sound water supply. And importantly, it recharges our overdrafted seaside aquifer. I hope we can look forward to its expansion for all of these reasons. I'd also like to thank Chair Edwards for reappointing me to the 152 Oversight Committee. Since it's going to be on the consent agenda, it's a great opportunity to learn about our water supply and the district's work and projects. Thank you all and have a good evening. I may be dipping over to another meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think it's important to point out that we also received 4.1 million from the same program off of fiscal 2019, and we haven't received $1 of that yet. So the money is assured, and the district will continue to support Monterey One Water in their efforts to take it down. But it's not like they just write you a $15 million check and overnight it to you. So we still have some work to do to bring it in-house.
Okay, thanks.
All right, Chair Edwards, there's nobody else that wishes to make public comment at this time, so I'll return it back to the board.
Chair Edwards, you're muted.
I'm gonna go ahead and ask him to unmute.
He's pulling one of my tricks.
There you go.
Okay, I'm new buttons. I knew I should have been working on this thing a month ahead of time. Okay, anyone, a board member wish to pull anything from the consent calendar?
Chair, if I may, I probably should abstain on the minutes, but since I wasn't at the meetings. So if the
All right,
record could
sir.
show that, please.
Director Roberson extending on the minutes. Anyone else? Oh, I'm gonna pull item number 3. Item number 3 for comments. Any other board members? Go ahead, Direct Vice Chair. Do you want to put you on me? Okay, go ahead.
I would just like to say that I have selected an appointee to the Oversight Committee, and I will be seeking board ratification of that person at the next regularly scheduled meeting.
Thank you. Director Rowley.
I move approval of consent calendar.
Let's check with the public.
Gotcha.
Anyone in the public want to pull anything from consent calendar?
I don't see anybody with their raised hand.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead with your motion, Director Rowley.
I move approval of consent calendar less item number 3.
Second, Adams?
Okay, we have a motion by Director Rowley and a second by Director Adams. Roll call vote, please.
Director Paul,
Yes.
Director Anderson,
Yes.
Director Robertson,
Yes.
Director Riley,
Aye.
Director Adams,
Aye.
and Director Edwards.
Aye.
So consent calendar is approved. Items 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, and 7.
All right, 6-0 vote on that. The reason I pulled item number 3, I want to thank Susan for her help and her staying on board. She stayed on board for, I think probably 8 years for Director Lewis. And then she came and stayed on board for me. So I want to thank her for staying on board. I know she had another meeting next door, so I know she's busy. I want to thank, and I also want to thank the whole 152 committee panel for what they've been doing. I've been going to all their meetings. They got one tomorrow. And I hear them, I hear them out, and they come up with some good suggestions and things, and staff working with them. So I hope that continue on this next year. I appreciate that. And I hope we ratify all those that want to be on that board. So thank you.
And I think we are rescheduling tomorrow's scheduled meeting.
Okay.
Suresh, is that your understanding? Or Joel?
I was notified that it's going to be rescheduled
Thank you.
Yeah, that's. I
because
thought-
I've been on that committee.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought we had sent a notice to the participants, the committee members.
Yep.
Okay. I move approval of item number 3.
I'll second.
And we have a second by Director Robinson. Okay, roll call vote, please.
Director Paul,
Aye.
Director Adams,
Aye.
Director Riley,
Aye.
Director Anderson,
Aye.
Director Edwards,
Aye.
and Director Robertson.
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0.
Motion passes 6-0. Thank you. Next item, General Manager's report.
Yeah, we'll start with the compliance with the State Water Board orders and Seaside Basin decision. This is through the end of December, so only 3 months. Joelle's going to bring the presentation up and screen share.
Just give me a second.
Yep, no problem. There we go. All right, next slide. So what you see here is the water resource system diversions on the Carmel River. The target now reflects a reduction in the effective diversion limit. But when the planned budgets were established, that had not been the case. So we're still coming to grips with a reduction in the overall budget of 1,000 acre feet, at least until further notice. The important thing to look at here is we seem to be within the target on the Carmel River. John Lear, I know you're on. I think that the 2020 actual number does not look right to me. And I just realized that tonight looking at it here for the first time. But nevertheless, let's go to the next slide. You can see here we've added in the Pure Water Monterey project. So we're still getting used to reporting that here on the second slide, where you don't see it on the first slide. Sand City desal has still been allocated at the 25 acre feet per month, but we had a 0 month in November. And so that project is still not performing consistently enough. And because there's been very limited rain, we'll talk more about rain, there's been no recovery. Well, there's been no injection from the river for ASR. There's been no Table 13 water rights, and there's been no recovery of ASR, although we do have about 1,000 acre feet sitting in storage in the basin. Next slide. This is production for customer service, which is a measure of customer demand. What you can see down in the lower right-hand corner is that the total for the year is below the same time in last year's water year. But on a 3-month sample, it's kind of hard to say if that's behavioral or just a byproduct of the end of the irrigation season in October and so forth. So we'll be watching this one. Next slide, rainfall. What this doesn't show you is what's just happened in January. So we finished out December with just over 1.5 inches of rain. But if you go to the next slide, this is the rain gauge. Yeah, one more, Joel. Next slide. I'm sorry. Let's go back up. I was looking at the wrong screen and I missed it. So one more backwards. So this is the rain gauge. Blue is the daily totals. And you can see just this last weekend, some significant rain. So we opened up January at just over 1.5 inches, but we closed out last night at just over 2.5 inches. You know, everyone is girding themselves for the storm that's supposed to arrive tomorrow and last for several days. I was informed by the county that the county team is going to meet tomorrow at 8 a.m. to begin to examine breaching of the sandbar at the lagoon. They moved it up a couple of days from originally scheduled on Thursday. So I think we are beginning to see a little change in our fortunes as it comes to rain and rainflow. Next slide. And this is unimpaired stream flow. Obviously, again, just through the end of December, way below the historical averages. And a little later in the presentation, I'll let you know how this all compares to historical. But that concludes the GM report for item 8. Moving on to item 9, I have a very brief presentation. Next slide. So this is an update on water supply projects. So with respect to Pure Water Monterey, things are going quite well. While Veda Zone well number 2 was shut down just temporarily, all 4 wells have received their reconditioning. The shallow wells have been shored up with new footings, and everything's going quite well. So we've injected through last Wednesday morning, 755 acre feet for customer use. I mentioned the final conditioning is complete. And we're running one deep well number 1 at about 1,300 gallons per minute, deep well number 2 about 900 gallons per minute, and then the 2 shallow wells at 50 and 20. All in, that's approximately 10 acre feet per day. So, you know, any given month, a 30-day month, you would see about 300 acre feet, which is really pretty close to where we had hoped to be. So I think those are all positive signals. We've done some clean in place at the advanced water purification facility. So, you know, these numbers are always subject to what's going on at the plant in terms of cleaning and what's going on in the fields in terms of back flushing. But generally speaking, pretty good shape. Next slide. At Pure Water Monterey, the new injection wells, about 20 feet of this 5-foot sleeve has gone in. Supposedly this week, but you know, we're looking at rain, will be another 120 feet of a 4-foot diameter pipe, and then they'll begin the drilling, you know, the 700-800 foot drilling. Ductile iron pipe from deep injection well number 1 to deep injection well number 3. You know, our numbering system's a little odd. So deep injection well number 1 is on site number 2. Deep injection well number 3 is on site number 1. And so well number 3 is at the top of the hill. Deep injection well number 1 is the second one down the hill, and so on. But anyway, we're connecting the 2 together so that water will be able to flow up to deep injection well number 3. And we've had some staffing issues due to COVID-19. Okay. And John Lear just told me back on the last presentation that the last year's number was correct because it was inflated by ASR withdrawals. So just wanted to add that. Next slide, please. This is all we know on the desalination plant. We've not heard anything. So, you know, we've gone to sleep on it for a little while. It's on my to-do list to connect with CalAm and find out if there's any schedule in place for revisiting the Coastal Commission. So I have nothing to report there. And next slide. Aquifer storage and recovery. Here's the finished chemical building. Next slide. We've closed out that account. And this is just a summary of what you approved as the construction contract award, the contingency, the total, and the estimated construction contract expenditure. So this is a combination of excellent project management by Maureen Hamilton, as well as choosing not to do a couple of smaller items that were in the original budget that we just felt were inappropriate to do at this time. But generally speaking, it was a good project with a good cost. Next slide. So I want to talk a little bit about ASR and the weather. This is the drought monitor for the Western states, brown meaning exceptional drought, red meaning extreme drought, and so forth. White would be no drought. So you can see that the Peninsula is in the moderate drought range as of, you know, the second week of January. Next slide. And this is what we were looking at prior to the rains we just got. So a year ago on the right, it was only up in the Klamath River area, the very northern part of the state, that had just abnormal dryness. And fast forward a year to today, just a blown up version of what you saw in the previous slide. Almost all of Monterey County is in, well, all of Monterey County is in moderate drought. Next slide. These are reservoir conditions around the state. You cannot find Nacimiento or San Antonio on here in this chart, but it is available reporting to the state. The Carmel River, Los Padres Dam, is not reported in this database. But suffice to say, you can see that Trinity Lake, Lake Shasta, Lake Oroville, and Folsom Lake were all below their long-term averages, which is the red line across the middle of each bar. So, you know, they're thirsting for water, as everybody is. But as we've learned through the past, rain is becoming a little bit more intense and episodic and less predictable from a month-to-month basis. Next slide, please. So we can skip this. You've already seen the rain gauge updated for the last 2 days. But this is, so, you know, we classify all the water years. So from the standpoint of rainfall, we've got a 99-year average, a 99-year data set. And you can see water year 2021 through the end of December is right there with the red line, which was 1924, the lowest rainfall total on record. So we were starting off the year, the first quarter of the year, at the low, at the worst place in history. Next slide. Similarly, for unimpaired stream flow, the same thing. That dotted line for 2021 is on the critically dry line, and that record's about 109 years of data. Next slide. So these are the 10 worst first 3 months of rainfall. So we went back in time and pulled out the, you know, which water years had the worst first 3 months. And again, we, this year, 2021, are right at that elbow of the 2 worst ones on this list. But the important takeaway is that 5 of those 10 water years ended up below normal or normal. So what that tells us is that you can have, you know, a March miracle, or in our case, I believe we're going to make up quite a bit here in January. The prediction in talking to Greg James is that we're going to be looking at 3 to 4 inches of rain at the low elevations here and as much as a foot up in the mountains. So we're expecting Los Padres Reservoir to fill and spill this week, which will run the river, which will very likely result in conditions on the river that may lead to our ability to divert for injection to ASR. So everything's going to kind of change with this next rainfall, we expect. That being said, if the lagoon breaches, we may have a different set of criteria. So, we're watching it all very closely. But so take that, what I just said, as a measure, because when we look at this next slide, this is the 3 to 4 week precipitation prediction as put together late last week. And so you can see that we're in the brown section, which is like a 55% chance of meeting normal. So basically the brown means we're below normal. And the white in the middle is, 50-50 chance of meeting. And then green is higher than 50% chance of meeting. So I think everything's changing, as you can tell. And then there's a 3-month prediction, the next slide, which has us kind of in the same place, about 40% chance of a normal year. So we'll just keep watching it, but I'm really positive about what we're seeing happening this week, even though it's cold and it's miserable for those of us who've been out. I think it should help. And that concludes item 9. And then I have a very brief presentation at I think it was 2 board meetings ago. One of the directors asked about how fish rescues went. So as Joelle's pulling up the item 10 presentation. So this was the district's ad. You may have seen it in the Pine Cone and the weekly, the week of January 11th. And it's about our stewardship and fish rescues. So I think it was entirely appropriate that here we are. We might see a breach of the lagoon. There's probably steelhead out there in the ocean waiting to get in. There's certainly steelhead in the lagoon, possibly waiting to get out. But anyway, it was very timely. So next page. I just wanted to let you know what we did rescue-wise last year. Almost 13,000 fish combined from the main stem of the river and the tributaries. And over the last 20 years, just under 400,000. And if you were to go back for our entire historical record, it's about 500,000 rescued fish. And we appreciate all the work that our field staff does to do that. It's relatively unseen work back in the woods and on the river and at our facility in Sleepy Hollow. So kudos to all of them for their work. And that concludes the general manager's report for this month.
Thank you, General Manager. Any board questions for the General Manager? Go ahead, Director Rowley.
Dave, I just wanted to get an update on how what's the schedule, do you think, of getting a report on comparing the COVID year with the other normal years?
Yep, we're going to have a report on consumption at the February board meeting. And hopefully I've looked at the data. It's a little challenging to, make unequivocal statements about it being due to COVID or being due to other things. But yeah, we'll have a review of that at the February board meeting.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, Director Robertson.
Just a quick question, which Dave could share the answer later, because I think probably all of the directors know the answer already. When you were talking about the ASR chemical treatment plant and came in on a little bit under $5 million,
Yep.
And maybe now or later, you can just email me. I'm just wondering how that was financed and who paid for it, et cetera.
Sure. And actually, it's a quick answer. It was paid for through the district's water supply charge, which is collected on by the assessor as a rate and charge on the on your property tax statement, kind of at the end with the mosquito abatement and other fees that that take place. So it was paid out of pocket, not financed.
Okay, thank you. Great answer.
Okay, General Manager, a few questions from me. Are we ready at the ASR site? When it starts pouring, starts flowing out to the bay, can we turn those pumps on and start putting water in the ground?
Well, John Lear began the email chain a couple of days ago. So John, I don't know if you want to step in and say aye, aye, sir, but I think we're pretty close to ready to go.
Yeah, we had yeah, Director Edwards, we had a meeting today with the level staff at CalAm and got some process ears, and we're ready, and we all have each other's phone numbers, so we'll make you proud.
Okay, I'd love to see that email come from the General Manager out to the board and public that we are putting water in the ground because we are behind. My next question to the GM is, have we heard anything from the state about the 1,000 acre feet that they take in, and we're trying to make it up now?
Yeah, we have not. It's on my to-do list for follow-up. I should let everybody know that Pebble Beach Company, as one of the applicants, also filed a letter, and the city of Monterey, kind of channeling their former membership with the mayor's authority, also sent a letter. I did put in a call to their legal counsel today. It did not get returned, so I'll bird dog that one.
I appreciate that. Board appreciate it. And my final question is, is a thank you to your staff for making sure that we got that project finished out there at the ASR site. They did a good job. I know they shy and didn't want to share it, but I'm glad we're sharing that we got another project done. So I appreciate all their effort, and I know the board appreciate all their effort. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Next item is a report from District Council. You have anything?
Mr. Edwards?
Mr. Chairman, but first you have a comment from Mayor Roberson.
Yeah, well, Mayor Roberson, I see a hand. Go ahead, Mayor.
Okay. Yeah, sorry. I just wanted to mention that the letter to the State Water Resources Control Board was from me personally, not from the city.
Okay, terrific.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, Dave. Thank you for recognizing me. And thank you. My name is Roberson.
Roberson, okay.
But as the old joke goes, I don't care what you call me as long as you call me to dinner.
All right, Mr. Director Roberson.
Thank you.
And thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do have a report. In December 14th, the board did meet in closed session. It was item 28 at the end of the agenda. And want to report out the one item on the agenda was the lawsuit filed by California American Water Company against the Monterey Peninsula Water Management District. This was a CEQA challenge to challenge the district's certification of the EIR for the potential acquisition of the Monterey water system and the boundary adjustment that's going before LAFCO. In closed session, the board received a status report and provided direction to staff and council to vigorously defend against the challenge to the EIR. That concludes my report.
Thank you, General Counsel. Any questions for General Counsel from the board? Director Rowley.
Dave, could you just give us an update on the schedule of the general rate case? I heard there was supposed to be some hearing later this month. I don't know if that's still on or not.
If I may, there is no hearing. That the additional evidence was not deemed required. The matter has now gone to receiving the stipulations of the parties, and that begins the briefing period. The briefing period will go for about 45 days before the matter will be then submitted to the PUC, to the ALJ for decision-making and recommendation to the commission.
So does that mean the next action before the PUC will be, sometime after 45 days?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I don't anticipate that we're going to have a proposed decision until May, possibly June, and that this will be on the commission calendar probably late summer, early fall.
Thank you.
Any other board questions for general counsel? If none, next item is director's report, including AB 1234, reports on trips, conferences, and attendance and meetings. Anybody? Director Rowley.
Thank you, Chair. I attended the special district meeting just a few days ago, and Mark Stone, the assemblyman, was the guest speaker, and he spoke pretty eloquently on a number of statewide issues, which I found very interesting. He's so informed and so easy to listen to because he uses terminology and language that it's easy to follow. He doesn't use acronyms and shorthand versions to things. So anyway, I appreciated that. He talked about COVID, and he talked about affordable housing. He talked about the fires. He talked about the economic disruption from COVID. It was very good. And then the last thing I wanted to say is I also was on the agenda. I made a short presentation on public banking, but I just add that for information.
Thank you, sir. Director Adams.
Thank you. I attended that meeting as well, and there was a fascinating presentation on public banking. And it was not a little tiny presentation. It was a very informative presentation, and I was very thankful that I was there and quite pleased that our board was graced with having one of our own do a great job on the subject of public banking. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments on AB 1234? Okay, we'll move along. Public hearings. General Manager, how many people we have out there in the public?
That's a great question. 24.
24.
Yeah, and I doubt that they're all here to talk about this one, this being a first reading, but certainly some are here specifically for that topic.
Okay, we'll get right back on that. And let me welcome Mayor Robertson to the board. I forgot, that's what I want to do in 1, 2, 3, 4. But I forgot about it. It came back to me. But I'd like to welcome you to the Monterey Peninsula Water Management District Board. And glad to have you aboard. Thanks for taking the assignment. All right, sir.
Thank you. I feel very welcomed.
Thank you. Sorry it took me so long.
Oh, it's okay.
Okay, General Manager, public hearings, go ahead.
Yeah, item 12 will be introduced by Stephanie Locke, and I believe she has a presentation that she will screen share from her location.
That I shall. Let's see. There we go. This is public hearing, item 12, consideration of the first reading of ordinance 187. This ordinance establishes the Department of Defense as a jurisdiction, also adds a water use credit process specific to the Department of Defense, and authorizes the general manager to extend water use credits for 1 year for justifiable cause. So this ordinance came about after discussions. We had a presentation with both the Army and the Navy several months ago. And at that time, we had some discussion about adding them as a jurisdiction so that when a new water supply is available, we would be able to provide separate allocations from the city of Monterey. So the Water Demand Committee met last fall and directed staff to prepare this ordinance. And so I'll just go briefly through the key points. I think the staff report was fairly thorough. So we're talking about the Department of Defense properties. On the peninsula, we have the Army, the Navy, and the Coast Guard. What we've found with these, and this relates specifically to water use credits, is that construction projects for these facilities are complex, and they take many years to go from when they're first planned and approved to when they actually receive funding. And then even sometimes it takes time after that to get the construction projects underway. So our current rule for a water use credit is that credit is available for 10 years from the time it's established. 10 years is often not enough time. In fact, I know at the Presidio of Monterey, there are some projects now that they expected to have constructed in the early 2000s that still have not received their funding. So in places like at the Presidio, they've undertaken a number of different retrofits and demolitions in anticipation of funding that has not come through. And now these credits either have expired or are about to expire. So what this ordinance does is it extends the time to utilize those water use credits from 10 years to 20 years on the Department of Defense sites. In doing this ordinance, it also includes reinstating credits that have expired during that newly extended period. So we would go back in time for up to 20 years and allow those credits to clock for the full 20 years. A similar consideration was given for redevelopment agency sites when redevelopment agencies were eliminated in 2005. And we allow redevelopment sites to also have up to 20 years because of the amount of time involved with their projects. What we're talking about with this ordinance is approximately 25 acre feet of a water use credit that would either be extended or reinstated at this time. And this is all part of the CEQA documents that will be filed after tonight's board meeting. Ordinance 187 also adds the Department of Defense to the definition of jurisdiction in Rule 11. And as I mentioned previously, this will facilitate future water allocations. And at such time as water becomes available after we've legalized our water supply and have water that we can reissue to the jurisdictions, then we would look at allocations to the separate branches of the Department of Defense. Right now, they currently rely on water allocation from the city of Monterey, and they actually don't go through the city for approval of the projects. So this has kind of created a kind of strange relationship where the water district requires them to get approval from the city for the water district to issue a water permit. So this will help resolve that process. The ordinance also, and this is not related to Department of Defense, but the ordinance does authorize the general manager to extend any water use credit for up to 1 year for justifiable cause. An example of this is, for instance, someone purchased a house and didn't know that they had a water use credit that was going to expire in the next year, and they planned to do a remodel and just found out about that credit and want to do something with the project. So if there's some unusual circumstance, then this gives the general manager authority to grant up to 1 year for additional credit. This was reviewed by the Water Demand Committee, and their recommendation was unanimous support. Staff and council is continuing dialogue with the Department of Defense parties to ensure that they have a thorough understanding of the district's permitting process and credit process. There is a letter of support in today's packet. Colonel Chung is here from the Presidio or the Army, and I'm sure they will have a comment on this, but the letter was for support. And an initial study will be filed with the county prior to the second reading and consideration of adoption. That's in compliance with the California Environmental Quality Act. So the recommendation this evening is that the board receive public comment and then approve the first reading of ordinance number 187.
Thank you, Stephanie. Well done. Okay, board questions. Any board questions? Okay, we'll go with Director Anderson and then Director Adams. Go ahead, Director Anderson.
I have a question about there was a one case that you mentioned about halfway through your presentation where it was like over 20 years, it seems like. And what do you have in place for those circumstances, except for the ability of the general manager to approve one additional year?
So I think what I was giving was an example of some projects that had taken 20 years. Specifically, we don't have anything. If a water use credit expires, it is expired. And in this case, right now with the Presidio, they have gotten permits for all of the projects that they've got in the queue, so to speak. The credits that they potentially could have, so as I mentioned in my presentation, there's up to 25 acre-feet of credit right now that would either be reinstated or extended. That credit partially comes from those projects. So there's a water permit that was issued for a dorm project that is still valid. And so if that were to expire, if they didn't do the dorm project, then that credit would go back to the Presidio for use.
Thank you.
Director Adams.
Thank you. I'm really supportive of this. I was just confused by one statement on the slides though, Stephanie. And when it was saying that the director, the general manager has the authority to extend, I forget the exact language, but I was wondering, does that mean just on military property or is that just throughout the whole district?
It's
Because
throughout the district.
Yeah,
it seems
it's
like it's odd to be positioned when all of the rest of this was about the military. I don't understand why.
yeah, completely odd. Oftentimes we do what are called cleanup ordinances, which will be a hodgepodge of 7 or 8 different things that are corrected or updated or modified. We took this opportunity of this ordinance to also throw in that all water credit extension, but it is not specific to the military. It's anybody with a water use credit that suddenly discovers that it's about to expire and begs for mercy. We give them, chances are we'll give them 1 year of mercy. So unrelated, kind of a cleanup item. It was requested by the Water Demand Committee.
Do you think if it were positioned either at the very beginning or the very end, it might seem like it's flowing a little more naturally than just kind of chunked into the middle of the whole military component?
Well, the way the ordinance is written, it's rule by rule. And so we're talking about rule amendments to Rule 25.5, and so that's where it fit. I agree, it is a little off, but
yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other board questions? If not, we'll take it out to the public, Joe, we give them 3 minutes on this one.
All right. So if you wish to make public comment and are participating by phone, by computer, please use the raise hand function to indicate you have a comment. If you are calling in and watching on your computer, please turn off your speakers. If participating by phone, please press *9 on your phone to let me know that you have a comment, and I will identify you by the last 3 digits of your phone number. So I have several speakers who wish to speak. So I'm gonna start off with, it looks like Colonel Warman. So I'm gonna go ahead and allow, go.
You got me, Joel?
Yes, I got you.
Okay. Hey, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Colonel Varman Chung. I'm the garrison commander here in the Presidio Monterey. I really first want to thank you all for your service to the community. Thank you for listening to us and thank you for taking action. I also got to throw thanks out there for Erica Marks and Karen Judkins working with the water board to get to this point. I want to start out by saying that we, the Army, are a part of the bigger team and a part of the community here in the Presidio in Monterey. The Army consists of the Presidio and DLI, And I think we contribute a lot to the local economy. Last year alone, the rough estimate is about $373 million contributed to the local economy in terms of training, jobs, and housing. And that housing is also provided to some civilians too. And I think in a year of uncertainty, the Department of Defense and the Army specifically has been able to provide some stability to the community and to the economy. But we really need your help, and this ordinance is part of that help. You know, as written, Rule 25.5 hinders our ability to fund and complete projects in time. The Army is good at a lot of things. Military construction in a timely manner is not one of them. It takes us a long time to get funds approved from Congress to fund some of the projects that Ms. Locke mentioned. You know, things such as, excuse me, barracks, dental clinic improvements, and general instruction buildings all take many, many years to get approved and to complete construction. And we appreciate the extension, or the board's consideration, the extension up to 20 years. You know, the water credits that we currently have on the books, we had 6.8 acre feet expire last year. This year, we're about to have 7.1 acre feet expire. And those water credits were earned through conservation efforts, through the installation of gray water systems, installation of high efficiency washing machines, waterless urinals, just to name a few. And without those water credits, we're putting future projects, future project completions in the coming years at risk. And we also want to make sure that the ordinances can continue to incentivize the use or water conservation in the area. And with this ordinance, you'll see some continued support to the local economy from the Army. So thank you all very much for listening and for taking action. And I appreciate everybody's efforts to support the Army.
Thank you, sir.
All right, so the next speaker we have here is Paul Dell. Paul, so I'll go ahead and I reset the timer. And you may present your public comment when you're ready.
Need to unmute him.
Paul? I'm gonna ask him.
There you go, Joel. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you, Joel. I appreciate it. Good evening, directors. I'm Captain Paul Dale, the commanding officer at Naval Support Activity Monterey, also known as NSAM, home to the Naval Postgraduate School, Naval Research Center, and the Fleet Numerical Meteorology and Oceanography Center. We appreciate the proactive consideration of all our water needs and your continued efforts to provide a reliable, sustainable, and resilient water supply to the naval installation. Water availability is critical to the Navy's future mission on the Monterey Peninsula. While the proposed ordinance acknowledges the importance of the military's role in the peninsula, the Navy unfortunately cannot support the ordinance as written without amendments. The Navy was not consulted nor included in the creation of the ordinance, and we requested delay of the ordinance at the most recent Water Demand Committee meeting. We still need more time to evaluate the proposed ordinance. We'd like to continue to work with your staff to thoroughly address our concerns and are prepared to submit additional amendments. The terminology used in the findings needs to be corrected. Notably, the findings do not reference Naval Support Activity Monterey, the Navy's installation, rather only reference the Naval Postgraduate School, which is a tenant command of NSAM. This stands out in comparison to the many specific references to the Presidio of Monterey, the Army installation. Naval Support Activity Monterey is the property owner for the purposes of the ordinance, is responsible for ensuring any water use credits assigned to the Navy's installation are available to all its tenant commands. Furthermore, the Navy cannot support an ordinance without an ability to have its past credits documented and available for reinstatement. The Navy recognizes water as a finite resource, and as such reduced its water consumption over 60% throughout the past 2 decades by means of active conservation measures. Section 5 of the proposed ordinance retroactively restores water use credits only to those credits documented by the district as of the effective date of the ordinance. Water use credits for the Navy's conservation work have not been documented. Therefore, we must work with the Water District to determine the district's perspective on available retroactive credits and suitable documentation prior to ordinance approval. Finally, the Navy concurs that each DoD site should retain its own water use credits and water allocations. However, the Navy requests the ordinance provide the ability to transfer or cooperatively use credits among DoD and Coast Guard entities by internally documented agreements rather than require a memorandum of agreement as set forth in the current draft ordinance. This change would allow documentation and flexibility that may need to be submitted in the future for all parties involved. The Navy also requests that the undefined term of DoD location be changed to DoD site for consistency, and also to make clear that all Navy facilities are able to use any Navy credits. We appreciate the district's work to support local military installations and resiliency efforts with this proposed ordinance. Due to our suggested changes to the language in the ordinance and findings, I recommend postponement of the second reading 6 months in order to work together to modify the draft ordinance in a way that benefits all of the armed forces branches and allows the Navy to ensure mission compatibility with with water policy. Thank you for your time and consideration of the Navy's concerns and needs.
Thank you, sir.
That's it.
That's it?
Yeah, no more hands.
Okay. Public comment is closed on this item. Back to the board. Any questions right now? Any question? Okay, we'll start with Mayor Roberson. Go ahead, Director.
Yeah, thank you so much. My question, well, first of all, Monterey being the home of these installations and having such a fantastic relationship with them, I'm just very pleased to see this ordinance. My question is, we had the captain's request to, it sounded like, to pass the first reading, then make the second reading 6 months from now. Normally it's, as I believe, it's a 6-week period. Could our staff address the captain's concerns, please?
Yeah, I'll start. But Stephanie, I'm going to put words in your mouth. I think all of the issues raised by Captain Dale are addressable. I think we can do so. Documenting past credit may take a little bit of time. I don't believe we need 6 months. And I would ask Mr. Laredo, normally we have our second reading at a subsequent 30 days, the next board meeting. Do we have the flexibility to extend to 2 to 3 months?
If I may, through the chair, yes, you do. It's not a requirement of law that you have this come back for second reading at any particular time period. So if the board chose to approve on first reading, it could set a time certain by which the second reading should be held. And just if the board's pleasure was to allow up to 6 months, that would allow you the negotiations with the affected parties to come back and bring it back in 2 or 3 months, or whenever within that period of time might be available.
And Stephanie, do you think that would work for you?
I think the concern that I heard from the Naval Support Activity is documentation and being able to identify projects that may have resulted in credit and projects that have been undertaken to determine, what the balance is at this point. So assuming they've got somebody that can work with my staff, I think it would definitely be doable.
Yeah, and the other things that he raised, I think are doable as well. So
absolutely, sure.
Yeah. Yeah, well, let's head down that path then if the board approves this first reading or accepts this first reading.
Okay, Director Adams, you have your hand up.
Thank you. I agree with what all have said. I just want to ensure that through Colonel Varman Chung that it will not be an impediment to the Army, or if we are to postpone the second reading for 3 to 6 months or up to 6 months.
Okay, any other board questions out there? Go ahead, Director Rowley.
Going back to Stephanie or Dave, I thought when this was discussed at some other committee meeting, that the site-specific issue was not required because it was authorizing the DOD, the entire Department of Defense, and all their facilities were included in this. Is there a need to go back and modify to identify every site? I just don't think so, but.
Well, we've identified the sites. I think that the concern that I've heard is that there's a concern that they don't want the potential for a credit that is undertaken by a project that results in a credit that's undertaken by the Army could suddenly be used by the Navy without the Army's authorization. So I think that's kind of the big concern there.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Go ahead, Director Adams.
Thank you. Can I have my question answered by Colonel Chung? Is that a possibility? Whether or not this is going to be difficult on him if we extend the date, is that appropriate or inappropriate?
Joe, could you find out if the Colonel's still out there?
Sir, I'm standing by if you can hear me.
All right, go ahead, sir.
Yes, sir. First of all, I agree with keeping the credit separate from the Army and Navy. We have completely different chains of command, and it doesn't unite until we get up to the Secretary of Defense level. So it's best that we keep it separate for our projects. In response to your question, ma'am, 6 months, I think 6 months is a little long. At the 6 month time frame, the remaining water credits we have are going to expire. I would ask for something shorter, but I think it would be reasonable to give the Navy a little bit of time to try to retroactively look at what water credits they've earned in the last, 10 years that they have not tracked up to this point, if that is fair.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I just want to add that, well, when your predecessors, when Captain Wiley and Colonel Ford were here, we did receive a lot of high praise for working together, but we've also seen through the past that isn't always the case. And as you point out, the chains of command are different. So the credits inure to the property, and so the owner of the property actually keeps the credit. But we, reflected on the joint dental facility, and there may come a time where one of your two parties says, well, I'll make the water available if you make the land available, and so forth. All of those things we believe we can address so that you will keep your credit in your branch of the service. When it comes time for a new allocation of water, so there's a new permanent water supply, while it is the DOD allocation, we will sub-allocate it so that, again, there too, you will have new water assigned to the Army and to the Navy separately. So that's the plan going forward.
Okay, Mr. Laredo, I'll get back to you, Director Riley. Are we going to get ourselves in trouble with this? Expanding the time? Or should we wait until we get all that information, or should we move ahead? And you know how I feel about the public out there. We doing one thing for the military, and they sitting out there, I want you to do the same for me. What kind of trouble are we getting ourselves in?
Well, this is within your legislative discretion, Mr. Chairman. I will point out that if we don't get it perfectly right, you have the ability to come back and amend it yet again. I heard that the two branches of the military have a middle ground that they feel that they can meet. I agree with your general manager that you don't need 6 months to do this. I suggest a shorter period of time might be appropriate to consider the concerns of the Army that the clock will otherwise run out on them. I believe that staff can give this a priority. We already have had some discussions, extended discussions with the services, and I believe that we can do that and bring it in on time. So if you're prepared to bring this to a first reading, I think that it'll be a priority in terms of bringing it back for that middle ground that can satisfy all the parties.
Okay, and Stephanie, do we have to do any CEQA work on this? Because I know we have them out there too looking at us.
Yes, we will, but until I have looked through all the comments that were just made, I can't tell you what the timing will be, but the CEQA evaluation will be done before second reading.
Okay, thank you. Director Raleigh, you had your hand up.
I would just move approval of the recommendation with the second reading no later, targeted for 4 months from now.
We have a motion out there by Director Raleigh. Do we have a second?
I will second it.
From Director Roberson. Got a second? Discussion.
Quick discussion, just want to say a couple of comments. Thank you. I'm very supportive of this. I agree with Colonel Chung, who indicated that the military has had such an important part of the whole life within Monterey County. So I'm really delighted that we're able to accommodate them in this regard. Today, I attended the Monterey Peninsula Chamber of Commerce membership luncheon, and Leon Panetta was the keynote speaker, and it was really very good. And one of the comments that he made was, once again, talking about the importance of us as the community to really make life easy for the military here on the Monterey Peninsula, so that should there ever be another BRAC that comes around, we are all working in the same direction. And I feel that it's very important that we're taking this step. So I'm really very thankful that we are about to vote on it. So thank you.
You're welcome. Director Roberson.
Yes, as a really close partner with the Naval Postgraduate School and the DLI, the city of Monterey really values our installations. I was on the city council in the 1990s when those two major educational installations were on the BRAC list, Grace Realignment and Closure. And those were scary days. But thankfully, as a community, we pulled together and we were able to keep our installations here, not just from a viewpoint of its economic impact, but from an educational impact. And when you think about how our military friends are so interwoven into the fabric of our communities, on our school boards, as teachers, as parents, their children attending our schools, I think it's really important to reinforce that partnership. So I'm pleased with the ordinance and the time frame as outlined by Director Riley.
Thank you, sir. Any other comments? If none, I would like to say a quick thank you to our past directors, Director Burns and Director Evans, for bringing this up. And one person I really want to talk to you about is he's retired city manager from Monterey, Fred Muir. Mm-hmm. He was instrumental in trying to get this. He's been talking about it for the last year or so. So the staff decided to do something about it. And Director Burns and Director Evans asked for this, and I'm glad we got there. I think staff could meet those 4 months, but if it's longer, I don't mind doing the first reading again and the second reading to get it done. So it's up to staff to make sure. Well, now we got it on the road. I know somebody want that delay, but I think we going halfway with it. So General Manager and staff, is up to you now. Roll call vote, please.
Director Adams?
Aye.
Director Anderson?
Aye.
Director Paul?
Aye.
Director Riley?
Aye.
Director Roberson? And Director Edwards?
Aye.
Motion passes 6-0.
Motion passes 6-0. Thank you, gentlemen and ladies. Okay, General Manager, what's the next item?
This one, item 13, is very easy. I think that staff note describes everything. We promoted Maureen Hamilton well-deservingly to Senior Water Resources Engineer, a position that had previously been approved by the board, but we never had placed it on the salary chart. So what this action will do is place it on the salary chart and allow her then to reap the economic rewards of a promotion.
Well, it's never easy when you're spending money.
No, but this is a good investment.
It's good money spent. All right.
This is very good money spent.
Any questions from the General Manager? No questions? Joel, let's take it out to the public, please. 3 minutes.
All right. So if you wish to make public comment and are participating by computer, please use the raise hand function. If you're calling in and watching, please make sure that you turn off your speakers. If you're participating by phone, please press *9 and I'll allow you to speak, and I will identify you by the last 3 digits of your phone number. So let me go ahead and screen share.
And there are no raised hands.
Yeah, there's no raised hands. Seeing that there are no further comments, I return this to Chair Edwards and the board.
Thank you. Public comment is closed on this item. Do we have a motion out there?
I'll move to approve.
Move
Second.
to approve by Director Adams, second by Vice Chair Paul. Anything on the, any discussion? If no discussion, roll call vote, please.
Director Roberson,
You're still
Yes.
muted.
Yes.
Director Anderson,
Yes.
Director Riley,
Aye.
Director Paul,
Aye.
Director Adams,
Aye.
and Director Edwards.
Aye.
Motion passes 6-0.
Motion passed 6-0. Thank you. General Manager, next item, please.
Item 14 is a return of what we call the parallel pipeline and bypass pipeline to allow simultaneous pure water Monterey recovery and ASR injection. We have 3 new board members who have not heard this before, so it was suggested to bring it back. The reason it was tabled previously was a concern that this pipeline would also serve the desalination plant, which had not yet been heard for its coastal development permit. One of the stated drawbacks of the desalination plant was what Marina Coast Water District suggests is insufficient capacity in the shared pipeline. And there were concerns by some of our board members and the public that this would serve to free that shared pipeline up and no longer be a constraint. So the board previously had tabled it. There's been no changes to the addendum, no changes to the project structure. It's just an opportunity to hear it once again. I can tell you that since the last time the board had heard it, the ASR season hadn't yet taken shape. We do have rains this week, but we hadn't, we didn't miss any December, and we don't know what'll happen in April or May. The board at Monterey One Water has changed, and it may be possible that they will once again take up the expansion SEIR, which would approve a very similar pipeline with a longer configuration, but very similar, that could be used for the same purpose. And the Coastal Commission did not act because the company pulled its application from the Coastal Commission, and its reapplication was deemed to be incomplete by the commission. And so there's been no formal action by the commission on this or on their desal project. So I've given you 4 options under the recommendation: defer until summer, another construction season, wait to see if Pure Water Monterey expansion is acted upon by Monterey One Water, wait for the Coastal Commission, or certify and approve the project.
Thank you. Any board questions? Go ahead, Vice Chair.
Well, when I first read through the agenda materials, I had a lot of questions about whether all of the CEQA requirements had been met in the addendum, but I'm going to put that aside for now because I don't know if we even need to get into that. I do not have a good understanding of the need for this project. And I read it all, but I still do not have a good understanding. the materials say that the simultaneous injection, that it's needed, that this bypass line is needed in order to be able to simultaneously inject for the ASR project and withdraw pure water Monterey production. But how, and that situation could happen in the months of March, April, May. So I'd like to know, and I think these questions have been asked, but how many days of the year are we talking about where that situation is likely to arise? How many weeks? How much water? What's the additional water we'd be able to recover from pure water Monterey if we had this pipeline? And I have a related question, which is also, since the dechlorination, there's a dechlorination facility piece of the project, which is, I understand, would enable us to inject the water without waiting 30 days. Is that piece of the project, is it possible to do that piece of the project on a standalone basis without the pipeline, or is that not feasible? And if it is feasible, was that considered?
Right. So, John Lear, I'll let you weigh in. I know that you addressed a similar question by Supervisor Adams' staff just today. We also do have Ian Crooks from California American Water on the attendees list, and Tyler Potter with Denise Duffy and Associates is also in attendance. So, and Tim O'Halloran from the company. So we should be able to get to solid answers for all of those. John, do you want to focus in on the how many days, how much water, how often, and then dechlor kind of segregated from the pipe?
Yeah, yes. Thank you, Dave and Director Paul. I think we can start with the dechlorination. The dechlorination that's a component of this addendum would be a facility that would be installed across the street from the current Santa Margarita site. It would be located on land that is owned by CalAm at their Peralta well site. The purpose of building this project is to allow the Santa Margarita site and the Seaside Middle School site to function separately, where the Seaside Middle School site could be used to inject water, while the Santa Margarita site was used to recover water. So the dechlorination component that is attached to this addendum would dechlorinate water that would be injected at the Seaside Middle School site. There is a bay at the facility that the district has built at the Santa Margarita site that would dechlorinate water that would be injected in the Santa Margarita site in ASR wells 1 and 2. So that's the first question about that. So if you built the dechlorination site at the Peralta site and didn't have pipelines connecting it, it wouldn't be useful to us. And so, but it is deconnected from the dechlorination that is going into the facility at Santa Margarita. Currently, when you're operating only ASR, water is entering the south side of the Santa Margarita facility. It's being treated. It can be dechlorinated. It goes through the treatment line and then it exits the north. It either goes down the wells on site at Santa Margarita, or it goes north into the Seaside Middle School site. So the Santa Margarita site can dechlorinate all 4 wells if necessary. But if you're using ASR 1 and 2 at the Seaside Middle School site to recover water, you would use this component of the dechlorination to dechlorinate the water that would be injected at the Seaside Middle School site. So it's meant to pull those, to decouple the function of those 2 sites. So one can be used to extract and one can be used to inject. So that's the component of the infrastructure side of your question, I believe. And then the amount of time is, we have permits that allow us to divert water and inject it out of the Carmel River for 6 months of time from December through the end of May. And it is the amount of days that would occur in April, May, and in the ending months, the last 3 months of the year, which you have to move into recovery of Pure Water Monterey. The ASR wells are the infrastructure that can produce water out of the Seaside Basin and move the water to the transfer pipeline that can move the water to the Forest Lake tanks and meet the lion's share of the demand on the peninsula. So in order to recover the water that is needed, the full 3,500 acre feet of water for Pure Water Monterey, there is a certain amount of months you must be producing out of those wells in order to meet that volume. And those months of the year conflict with the months of the year that are in our ASR permits. And so the pipeline was to try to move that around and allow for more injection. And there is I don't know if we have that as a slide. I don't think we do, Dave, that has the amount of water that was that I sent. I have it on my screen, but
yeah, I didn't put it up.
But it is when Dave was showing the amounts was showing the precipitation and the different bins of water years. It depends on which bin of the water year you're in. Where we've seen injection, we've experienced permittable days for all of those 3 months where there would have been 92 permitted days to eject. So you would have missed all those permitted days to eject. And we've seen years where none of those days have been permitted. So, if you say on a normal water year, half of those days are permitted that you can inject, you would be leaving on the table about 20 acre feet per day that you're not putting in the ground. So I don't know if that was sufficient or if I've just confused the situation.
It helps. It helps. Thank you. A follow-up question. The addendum, the memo and addendum refers to deficiencies in the ASR system. From what I gather, it's more like constraints than deficiencies. But were these constraints or deficiencies, known all along? Is it new information, these constraints that you're trying to address with the project, or were you aware of these constraints all along in the life of the project?
So the reason why that this is being done as an addendum to the ASR EIR is because when ASR was designed around the current infrastructure of Cal-Am, it was not envisioned, Pure Water Monterey was not envisioned. So the building of Pure Water Monterey introduced these system constraints. And now you have two very good projects that can't operate at the same time is basically what it is. But now if we talk about ASR as its own project, there have been system constraints, which it would be that are being addressed on its own project path, which would be needing of more production out of the Carmel Valley when you're diverting so you can meet your maximum permitted values. There was a system constraint of moving water from the valley to the ASR well field, and that was addressed with building the Monterey pipeline. And so there are things moving forward in the general rate cases that are to address the constraints of the ASR system, but not to address the constraint of Pure Water Monterey and ASR functioning simultaneously in those overlapping months.
Okay. Go ahead, Director. Vice Chair, you got one more? And then we'll move on to somebody else.
How long have have you and as a district and CalAm been aware of this constraint? And it's from the beginning of the Pure Water Monterey, or from early in the life of the Pure Water Monterey project?
I would say fairly enough that there wasn't, it really depends on what the larger water solution is that's not ASR or Pure Water Monterey, i.e. if there's a desal plant or if there's expansion. So if there was a Pure Water Monterey expansion, it was recognized that this would be a constraint of those two functioning together. So it was designed into that. CalAm and the district at the time of pulling together a project description and doing the CEQA work for Pure Water Monterey, we sat down and we mapped out all the pipes in that area. We figured it all out, and we realized, yes, you would need an extra pipeline to make this work in this way. And that was with a much larger volume of water needing to be extracted out of those well fields. And it actually came with the Pure Water Monterey expansion has a set of additional extraction wells. So it was not envisioned that you would need to have injection wells turn off and begin extracting. So there was a removal of that bottleneck by including extra extraction wells in the Pure Water Monterey expansion. But now that everything's stalled out, as far as what's coming down the road, we're realizing, well, now we have two pieces of these projects built that can't function together. And that piece, even though it's the same causational fact, it's confounded by needing to use the ASR wells as recovery wells because you don't have additional recovery wells, and then needing water to move two directions in a pipeline for 3 months. And that was discovered and then brought forth when we started bringing this EIR addendum to the board, and it's probably been coming before the board for about 6 months now.
Okay, any other board questions? Go ahead, Director Adams.
Thank you. John, I was just wondering if you have the slides that you could share on your screen that show the amount of water that we could lose if we, if we did not go through this process.
Yeah, let me dig for that, and if there's another question for another person, I will pull that up.
Thank you. I think it could be helpful to understand the circumstance. At least it was for me.
Director Rowley, go ahead.
Thank you. I have a question about the dechlorination facility. Is that needed because of the source water, the constraint around the source waters that exist? Or is that needed, would that be needed if pure water expansion were approved? Is the chlorination required in the pure water expansion project?
Okay. No. I was going to say the dechlorination as current driver for the dechlorination right now is because the source water is chlorinated because it is actual system water. The dechlorinating breaks down the time. It cuts down on the time that is needed for the disinfection byproducts to decay. I will caveat, and so it is not. It is a need for right now if you're going to operate this project and try to cut down on the time that you have to have downtime and the wells can't do anything. But the caveat of that is the district has been asked by the Regional Water Quality Control Board to move into what's called the general permit for injection of drinking water. And it's not complete. We're in the permitting process and we may be required to dechlorinate anyways as we go through that permitting process. So that answer is not known.
But the proposal for dechlorination in this proposed project is clear. It's needed. Is that correct?
The dechlorination facility at at Peralta would be needed so that the wells, if that well set at Seaside Middle School was used to inject through the end of May, that you could turn around on June 1st and start using them to produce instead of having to wait till the middle of July.
But is the dechlorination for ASR water?
The dechlorination is for injected water. It's at the point of injection to remove the chlorine from the water. The water, if it's chlorinated, goes into the aquifer and breaks down into the disinfection byproducts, and then it turns into water that does not meet the water quality of the permit held by Cal-Am of Department of Drinking Water to produce for the system, and must decay in those disinfection concentrations. Always decay. We have 20 years of experience showing us that with this project, but it takes 6 weeks for that to happen.
Well, a more specific question, but not to this specific project, but the one that's tied to pure water expansion. Does the pure water expansion SEIR, as it exists today, include a dechlorination facility?
That is a question I don't know the answer to. Do you, Dave?
No, I don't.
Okay, another question. You say March, April, May are the kind of trigger months for where the constraints take place, where they occur. That's also not every water year. It's only periodic water years. Is that a fair kind of concept? I'm trying to approach this from the. This is not an every year issue. This is a periodic issue that comes up based on the rainy season. Is that a fair understanding?
Yeah, I'd say yes.
That's correct. It's not every water year.
So this project, the bypass pipeline and the dechlorination facility, is intended to serve those irregular years, and I'm going to say maybe every other year, but it's not predictably every year, to be an episodic requirement. Is that fair? I mean, because we're trying to maintain an operation that allows water to go in both directions, but the need for assuring that there's both directions are open. It's like a highway system. You know, you got cars going in both directions all the time. Well, in this case, we don't have water going in both directions all the time. It's episodic. Do I have that understanding correct?
I think you ran John away.
Yeah.
Yeah, John's looking for his, he's got it now. Yeah, the injection numbers that Director Adams was asking about.
Okay. General Manager, can you answer Director Rowley's last question?
Yeah, well, I wouldn't say it's, episodic. If you're trying to get 3,500 acre feet of pure water Monterey out of the ground, it's probably going to take you at least 10 months, if not 11 months, which means there would be some desire to extract water and move it southward. And then, if it's a normal year through an extremely wet year, you might be in a position to inject ASR water as late as May, certainly April. So it's the overlap of those two. But as John's pointed out, if you're in a critically dry year, you're probably not injecting in March, April, or May. So there'd be no conflict. But it's just way dependent on the type of water year for ASR injection, whereas pure water Monterey extraction will be fairly normal year in and year out.
Just now that the screen is showing what Mary Adams was asking about, I'll defer to that line of questioning. And then I would like I have some more questions.
Yep.
Okay, Director Rowley. Go ahead, John. You have the chart up. You want to answer Director Adams' question?
Yes.
So we can move along.
Yes, thank you. So here is the chart that we were referring to. And it breaks it down into the categories that Dave's presentation was showing earlier of the different types of water type. The way that those bins are created is they're actually a 12.5% bin. And so you with the normal bin in the middle being 2 of the 12.5%. So it's the normal water year will occur 50% of the time. So if you take it and you look at if you don't have this pipeline during those 3 months, there's a 12.5% chance that you'll be in an extremely wet water year, and that means you'll miss 90 days of injection. And then that translates to 1,197 acre feet. If you have a normal water year, there's a 50% chance of having a normal water year, so you would miss 60 days of injection. Then when you're because you're looking at the odds, that if you don't have a extremely wet water year, you don't have a normal water year, well, now your odds are increasing of having a below normal or a dry water year. When you get into those, you're missing 19 and 9 days because that you're not hitting permit. And this is again based on the 109-year flow record that we have on the Carmel River and just applying our permits and which days, how many days would you have been able to divert water in that 3-month window. So this is what I believe Director Adams, you were asking about.
And that is if we have no bypass pipeline, but we do have the dechlorination plant, or is it no bypass and no dechlor?
So this is where it's confusing. This is a dechlorination facility at the Santa Margarita, which there is a bay in that building that was just built that could be made into a dechlorination. So if you were not able to build dechlorination, you would want to build, the district needs to build dechlorination and do a bypass pipeline. The bypass pipeline is assuming that the second dechlorination facility is also constructed at Peralta. So that's where the confusion is that the dechlorination station at Peralta is included in the bypass pipeline. And then in addition, the district will need to build its own dechlorination facility at Santa Margarita.
Wow, that seems kind of duplicative, doesn't it?
It is duplicative only in the way that when you're injecting the dechlorination station at Santa Margarita for the months of December until you need to start recovering pure water Monterey could be used to dechlorinate the water going down all 4 wells. So the Peralta station would not need to be run. At the point in time that you wanted to stop and start recovering pure water Monterey, you could stop and you could turn the injection off and start recovery, and that would the dechlorination at the Santa Margarita facility would allow you to do that for wells 1 and 2. You could start chlorinating the water and sending it back to the system. Now to continue injecting at sites 3 and 4, you would use the dechlorination facility at Peralta to dechlorinate water going down wells 3 and 4, so that at the end of May, you could turn around and turn those wells on at the beginning of June, ASR 3 and 4, and not have to wait till mid-July to turn those 3 and 4 on. So it is 2 stations that are doing the same thing, and it is a station that would operate, and the dechlorination station at Peralta is to save the 1.5 month resting time for wells 3 and 4, so they can be used to recover pure water Monterey more immediately.
So would all of this kind of go away if we had the Pure Water Monterey expansion, at least for the time being? Because if I'm hearing you correctly, we would have to have the pipeline and a dechlorination facility if we have Pure Water Monterey expansion. And we would just have to do it, that's what we would do, that we would have the responsibility of building it at that time. Is that right?
If I understand your question, and I may not have, if you built Pure Water Monterey expansion, you would have a very similar pipeline, except it would extend further north and it would hook to 4 more recovery wells. Those recovery wells would be the extra source of water, but you would have a bypass pipeline very similar to this pipeline, and you would not have a facility at Peralta. The work described by this EIR addendum is just to get the stuff that's in the ground right now to work together.
Okay.
But it could be, but the pipeline could be, you would not need to build yet another pipeline if Pure Water Monterey expansion was
Got
chosen.
it. Okay, so it would end up costing less in the long run?
Pure Water Monterey expansion would go down if this work was done. This length of pipeline would not need to be built again.
Okay, thank you for that. Thanks very much.
Okay, Director Anderson, do you have any questions?
Yes, I do.
Go ahead.
With this data slide that's up here right now that John put up, so you've got this statistical, I don't know if statistical, but you've got the chances depending upon the water year. Has the staff looked at this kind of data for over, let's say, the last 4 or 5 years to see what in real terms, by depending upon our rainfall, what we would have missed? Well,
yeah, I have not done that, but that is an exercise that it can be done. This was more of taking the entire 110-year record and looking at the 110-year record. But if we can easily go back and say that last year's water year was an above normal water year, so you would be in the 37.5%. So you'd have missed about 1,000 acre-feet, just as a rule of thumb.
1,000 acre-feet of injection
water. Yeah, let me see if I can get this. So these are the assumptions that production of Pure Water Monterey would need to begin in March. So that means if there's no dechlorination facility, it would need to begin, and I apologize for the misspelling, and we would have to stop in February, so the wells would be ready in March. So that's the wrinkle with the dechlorination facility. And if the bypass were constructed and the recovery of Pure Water Monterey was able to occur at the same time of injection, at the Seaside Middle School site, you can inject 13.3 acre-feet a day. And then based on the number of days in the permits, I just multiplied the number of days by the 13.3 acre-feet a day. So it's the analysis that you're speaking of, but done kind of in a reverse order.
Is it possible for whatever that sound is to go away? It just did. Thank you.
I had one more question, and it was just a suggestion. Really looking at the data that was in the packet, looking at the exhibit 14C, the bar graphs, and they supposedly showing a 200 acre-foot buffer on the one with just one a pipeline and a 1,000-acre-foot buffer on the other one. In the future, it would be very helpful to not print these two-sided, because the dark blue shows through on the bars from the other side, and it's very difficult to interpret these because everything is showing through. You've got gray and beige, and I could not see how that conclusion was arrived at, because I couldn't read this the bar graph, because the colors were shining through from the back side. So it was difficult for me to understand what that problem was. Yeah, I still don't really see it, visually see it. But
May I make a suggestion, Chair Edwards?
Go ahead.
Maybe John could walk us through that slide. I would like that as well.
I think
the bar graph?
Yes.
I think that is that your bar graph, Dave?
No, this is,
I'm not sure the one.
it could be Ian or Tyler. This is page 119 and 20.
Looks like this.
In the pack.
Yes. Oh yes, if we could promote Ian or Chris, they were the source of that slide.
Okay, let's try to bring them up.
Yeah, so Joel, we'd be moving Ian Crooks from attendee to analyst.
Show up on the panel.
I don't know who got that ringing, but it needs to stop.
I don't hear it on my end.
Oh, it stopped.
Yeah, I think it's John.
Oh, Ian is already moved over as a panelist.
Yeah, I saw him twice on the attendees list, so I don't know if he's on one as sound and the other on sight.
Yeah, this is Ian. Can you hear me?
There we go.
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Oh, thank you. Hey, Zoom just crashed on me, so it rebooted. So I'm sorry, I started to catch a little bit of someone holding up a slide.
Yeah, they're looking at exhibits in the, well, I don't know if you've got the PDF version of the packet available or not, but it's page 119 of the PDF. It's inside exhibit 14C of the packet.
You have to give me one moment to
yeah.
Here. And that was, I'm sorry, Dave, what page?
119 and 120.
119. Okay, the Remy Moose and
no, so you're really close though.
Thank you, Don. It says 14C and then, oh, okay, so not the PDF page, but the package page.
Oh yeah, just go to 14C. So you're on the HTML. Yeah.
Yep, got it.
Yeah, and then
the graph.
Yeah, two bar charts.
Yes. Okay, and I'm sorry. Okay, so what do you? I guess what's the question that's on the floor, or what's?
Yeah. So midway in this exhibit,
yeah,
are the bar charts showing different sources of water.
Yeah.
With and without the parallel pipeline.
Mm-hmm. Right.
There you are. That's the first one, and then the next page.
Yep.
I don't know if you did these. I mean,
Yeah, me, Chris and I, yeah, worked on these, yes.
great.
Yeah. Yeah, so the idea behind this is just to show that how the operations in the field would work with supplies, with or without the parallel pipeline. And it's on a water year basis. It's October to September. And it just shows that the difference about how we would operate things and the benefit of being able to operate ASR system more often throughout the year with the parallel pipeline.
Yeah, and it looks like you end up with an extra roughly 800 acre feet in the system with the pipeline.
That's right.
Can you show me where you're seeing that? Where's the 800 feet? How are you coming up with that number?
Yeah, so the difference is in the January, February, March bars.
So this is the one that supposedly shows that shows the 200 acre feet buffer or less. The first one, Exhibit 3A, the top graph.
Right.
And because what's missing? What am I seeing? What am I not seeing? That's different than the other year. Just the injection of ASR. Is that what's missing?
Yeah.
Yeah, you would. Yeah, that's right. You would.
Right. Yeah, right here.
On these graphs. Yeah, the additional injection that could occur.
Yeah, and you're also showing in October, November, and December your ability to take more from the river.
Right. The key that, yeah, and I just think another, yeah, that's the important part is like the river, the ability to use the supplies there. You see in the second chart, the ability to start using ASR system for supplies.
And why do those river, the amount that can be taken from the river in January, February, and March, why do those go down so much? That time of year, you'd think, I don't know. Just
So this is a demand versus supply. So you would want to maximize storage if you have the ability to withdraw a Pure Water Monterey project. As Dave alluded to earlier, you could make use of the Pure Water Monterey project for 8 months or 10 months of the year, and therefore store as much as possible from the Carmel River for other uses in the future when there's a drought and whatnot.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to get an elegant answer to this question.
Agree.
Okay. No, let's hold up for a minute. Director Roberson, do you have any questions?
No, I don't have any questions. Trying to follow a very complex discussion, but thank you. I'm good. Thanks for asking.
All right, sir. Okay, Vice Chair, you had a question, and then we go back to Director Rowley, and then I'm going to the public.
Okay, just a quick question. So if those graphs we were just looking at, it's kind of a hypothetical. Tell me if I'm wrong. It's a hypothetical water year. A water year with a maximum injection type of water year. Is that right?
That's what it says.
Okay, so with different rain pattern, that chart could look entirely different. Is that right? Sure. Mr. Crooks?
Yes, sir. Yes. Yes, ma'am. Are you asking if well, one thing I did note of is if you note the header on these both slides here, they sort of explain the background of the data that went behind it. And so it notes that in the second slide, if you had the parallel pipeline, you could increase the ASR bank and Table 13 rates and allow max ASR injection with approximately 1,000 acre-feet buffer. And this would all assume, and I don't have the Excel spreadsheet in front of me that we put this together with, so I'm not quite clear on all the data, but my recollection is we just, I think, assume a typical or normal 1,300 acre foot. Well, it's not necessarily normal, but the assumed 1,300 acre foot ASR injection type season.
Okay, Director Adams, go ahead, and then Director Rowley.
Thank you. This is such a complex situation. And I'm just wondering if perhaps we should not make a decision tonight about this. I just feel like maybe what we should do is have a bit of a seminar. I had to have this just with John, just to understand what this was about. And I have staff who help me with this. But perhaps for some of the new members, and I would want a refresher, if we could have just something, like a side, 2-hour meeting that just focuses on this, so you have a much better comprehension of what it is that's being talked about here. That would also give time for the Monterey One Water Board to meet and decide, if that's a possibility, what they're going to be doing, if they're going to move forward with the expansion of Pure Water Monterey. Because if so, I feel like we're talking about something that would end up being beneficial for everyone in a much, I think it would just be more beneficial for everyone if that were to happen. And we would be able to have the pipeline and the dechlorination plant just all done at one time. So I would suggest that we postpone a decision on this until we have a better understanding of exactly what it is that we're talking about, and have time to hear what the Monterey One, the newly constructed, essentially, Monterey One Water Board intends to do with the expansion. And I could make it in the form of a motion.
No, not yet.
Go.
We got the public to go to, and we got Director Rowley want to make a comment.
Well, I'll always be quiet for him.
Oh yeah, and then we're gonna move to the public, and then I get my say. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Just going back to those two charts and the bar charts, it seems to me that the months of April and May are basically similar in both scenarios. And I think we're talking about the pipeline addressing the problems of April and May. And I don't see how the bar charts share any light on April and May. So that's just an observation. I do have a question that, let me just make sure if we are not able, let me just go back to either John Lair or the GM. If this project does not go forward the way it's presented tonight, if it does not go forward, does the suggestion does that mean that there might be more water taken from the Carmel River than normal? And therefore, does that endanger anything related to the CDO? I'm trying to get a relationship to the milestone issues, the limits, and how we're all trying to get off the river.
Yeah, and the short answer is yes. You wouldn't want to overdraft the Carmel beyond its legal limit, and I think the company said that if they become close, they're probably going to over pump the Seaside Basin. But the gist of it is, if you can get less water out of the ground or less water into the ground, then it's got to come from somewhere. So in both of those charts, it's the same amount of overall water. In other words, the height of the bars are all the same.
Right.
Conceptually, the idea is you'll have more source water from, or more available water from ASR, which expands your flexibility at the river or increases the buffer. But I think we've done a really inadequate job of explaining all that tonight. And so I think, yet one more attempt to go back and simplify the message might be worthwhile.
I would just add one thing, Dave, to Director Riley's question about the difference between the April and May bars. The bars are done for an average, a normal water year, and the changes in those bars will be seen in extremely wet and wet water years. So that they're not the quite same comparison.
Okay. I have no more questions now. I may have some comments when it comes back to the board.
Thank you. Okay, Joe, let's take it to the public for 3 minutes each.
Okay, so we have Michael Bear with his hands raised, so I'll go ahead and allow him to talk. And before you begin, Michael Bear, please allow me to share my screen for the timer. And then you may present your comment, Michael Bear.
Good afternoon, good evening. You can hear me, right?
Yes, sir, I can. Go ahead.
So it is complicated. I got a few comments. One is no one shared the cost. How much is that pipeline? How much are those chlorination stations? How much money are we talking about to do this project? The second point I'd like to make is when John Lair was talking, it is complicated, and it seemed to me, in looking at the, that a graphic, that if there was a picture, a graphic, a graph, not a graph, a picture, an image that would show, where the pipelines are, which directions the water's flowing, and where's the bypass, what's the existing one, where are the injection sites, what are the extraction sites. A picture can be worth 1,000 words. And it seems like a picture of the system that they were talking about between the two injection sites that he spent all that time talking about would really help. And there might be an alternative that doesn't require two chlorination stations, but you got to kind of understand what's going on, what the purpose is, and to look at it. So I would suggest that would be very helpful to understand what's going on and to maybe rethink how to make it more efficient. But the major question I want to hit at is, depending on the cost, why is the district considering this pipeline? If this is for Monterey One water, recycled water, pure one water, I just read in the weekly, they got a $15 million grant. This seems like part of their project. Why are you building their project? If this is the first project and we're talking about a necessary pipeline and it's interfering with the ASR that you guys created before it was even conceived, why is it on the district to have to pay for this? This should be Monterey One Water's problem. not yours. And then I just have to, since I still have a minute, I want to go back to that Monterey pipeline that we had to spend 2 years and $50 million on. And my understanding, my recollection, I was very excited when it was finally built. I remember the record water year of 2017, I believe, where you got 2,345 acre feet out of ASR. And the thought was, we had a big water year, how much more are we going to get now? And we got less. They had problems. It was a brand new pipeline. You were learning how to drive it. My understanding, current understanding, is that there's an additional pump station in the current rate case that they're trying to get in order to make the Monterey pipeline more efficient, so that in a huge river, when the river's running huge, you guys can get a lot of water. And that problem's not even solved. And my time is up, so I'll stop there.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, and Joel, I see that Chris Cook is there. I don't know if he wants to speak, but if you would unmute him and see if he needs to speak, that would be helpful. And while we're waiting for Chris, I do want to remind speakers that just because you have extra time doesn't mean you have to fill it if you want to choose not to.
Thank you, General Manager. The board takes it. Okay, Joel, anybody else out there? I know
This is Chris Cook. Can you hear me?
Oh,
Yes.
yeah.
Oh, great. Okay. Thank you, Dave. Yeah, I apologize for not being on sooner. I actually took the lead in making those graphs. I have several of the answers to those in terms of like when George was saying, or Director Riley, sorry, was saying that he wasn't seeing it in April or May, the constraint. It's actually, as I think it was Director Anderson was mentioning, the color coding is pretty important because you look at the different source waters, with blue being the Carmel River source water and the different shades of green being the different seaside basin water. So when you have something that's significant amount of green and minimal blue, that shows that you need to extract at that time, and you can't be injecting because you need to have all that consumption by the community on the way to ASR. But I think the message is clear that we need to be more simple in our explanation. So rather than going back and trying to re-explain those graphs, I think I can work with John Lear and try and come up with a little bit simpler of an explanation. I would say in terms of maximizing ASR, there's definitely the constraint there that's important to overcome. There's also what we're working with the source water with the wells in terms of the end of useful life for a lot of those wells and re-drilling those. So I think that'll be the other part on the production side. So I think that's all that I had to add, Dave. I don't think I'm going to rehash the whole graph. I think it's spent enough time on that. Thanks.
Thanks.
Okay, Joe, who else in the public want to speak?
The next person that we have on the line here is Anna Thompson. Anna, I'll go ahead and allow you to talk, and you may present your comment.
Yes, my name is Anna Thompson. I have the same kind of questions that Michael Bear questioned earlier. And I also am very interested, how cost effective is this pipeline? How much is it going to cost? And are there alternatives? And right now, we don't even know what the Coastal Commission is gonna, whether it's gonna approve or not the permits request from CalLand. And why do we want to, what is the urgency to approve this project right now? I think there's a lot of unresolved questions, and I think it should be, who is responsible to build it to begin with? And if we're going to have the pure water Monterey expansion, then we'll be, at that point, will be the time to build it. And how long it's going to take to build that pipeline. So we will now be able to meet this April or May, I think. So what is the urgency to go ahead and approve it now? So again, how much it's going to cost? Is it cost effective? Is there another way? Do we really need it to decide now? because how long it's gonna take to build it and who's responsible to pay for it. So, okay, that's it. Thank you very much for considering my questions. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, the next person that we have on the line here is Susan. Go ahead and allow her to speak. Susan, you may present your comment.
Thank you. I want to support Mary Adams, Supervisor Adams' suggestion that this be delayed. I do think that we need to wait and see what the Monterey One Board is going to decide and discuss regarding the undecided SEIR for expansion. There has been a change on the board and they may be moving in a different direction, especially with an incentive from the federal government they've gotten in terms of what this means as a project. I'd also be interested in the cost on this and how long it would take to build it. And why do we need to do it now? I don't want to unwittingly give CalAm what it needs for its desal plant. And we don't have the decisions made on that either. The Coastal Commission is still not given us a decision, and I'm not sure what the status of the application is yet. So I think we should delay it. I think you're doing the right thing to put it off, get more information, and reconsider it. Thank you.
Next up, we have John Tilley. So let me allow him to speak. And John Tilley, you may present your comment.
Thank you. You can hear me fine?
Yes.
Go ahead, sir.
It's John Tilley, co-chair of the Coalition of Peninsula Businesses. As we've said before, we support the approval of this pipeline. For one reason would be to maximize ASR. ASR does allow us to, in what years,
Hey, my comment, we can go take a break. We're all going to look and see if we are. Will you listen to
Mr. Tilley?
John, you've dropped out.
I think my microphone switched over to somebody else. Could I have a few seconds back, please?
Go ahead, give him a few seconds back. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Chair. So as I was saying, the Coalition of Peninsula Businesses previously did support this pipeline for the obvious reasons that it assists with ASR. If it's not being used every single year, then we've got problems. That means we have a drought. And as George Riley suggested, it's every other year. That means we're having a drought every other year, and we're failing to be able to use the water we're allotted on the Carmel River. So the beauty of it is it's a win-win. The idea that if ASR is failing due to drought conditions, that the pipeline could be used for a potential desal plant is another win. The idea also that this district isn't pursuing a backup to ASR beyond Pure Water Monterey, which is also a drought a vulnerable project, doesn't seem to be serving the mission of this district very well. So I would encourage that this sort of redundancy, which was the purpose of the three-legged stool, to be supported, to be voted on by the approval of this pipeline, and to be considered in your thoughts as you look at the various projects and the potential for them to fail. Because a lot of us are looking at them and worried that they might fail. So I would suggest, rather than pursuing legal concerns and situations that impede the desal plant, you really look at it as a potential backup for our water supply in the area. And lastly, I'd like to say that when you go to look at the water flows, please look at a 10-year average, because that's what we use in the big picture at Sacramento when we're looking at these sort of considerations. A 10-year average, not a 3-year average, not 1 year, but 10 years. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
All right, seeing that there are no raised hands, I'll go ahead and return this to the board.
Thank you.
Yeah, point of order on the last comments. There is no requirement to use a 10-year average. There's a requirement to use a 10-year historical peak for peak capacity planning. But forecasting your water supply, there is no requirement to use a 10-year average.
Okay, thank you. Director Adams, you wanted to make a motion.
Yes, I would move that we postpone this decision until another later meeting, allowing time for more thorough presentation, perhaps well, I don't want to get too long into the motion, so maybe I better just make it short. I would propose that we postpone this decision until at least 1 month from now.
Okay, do I have a second out there? Do I have a second out there? Motion dies without a second.
Damn.
Director Rowley, you have your hands up. Go ahead.
I have a hard time disagreeing with Director Adams. In some ways, I feel like we're kind of in a game here about who's going to do what first. And my concern is that we're the third place holder for this bypass pipeline. The second place holder is Pure Water Monterey expansion, because as noted earlier, the Pure Water Monterey expansion includes this pipeline plus a few additional feet, I don't know, 200-300 feet, that allows for more connections to the pumping stations that serve the same system. And so my priority is to tie the pipeline to a steady water supply, not tie this pipeline to I would call it periodic, but it's off and on water years where there's water in April and May. That, to my thinking is it's periodic. And the Pure Water Monterey expansion is our top priority for water supply as a district. And I think we ought to do everything we can to push that direction, because it includes this pipeline, it includes a water supply, and it includes a partnership, and it makes sense with the money we've already spent for this, for the Monterey expansion. So from an economic standpoint, from a kind of a totality planning process, it makes sense. From a water supply constancy, it makes sense to me. And so I'm gonna make a motion that we deny this project. Period. Just as an additional comment, it can always come back.
You got a second. You got a second. You got a second on your motion. Okay, let's go through the discussion. Anybody want? Go ahead, Director Rowley. You can finish up. You go first.
I just think for purposes of timing and for purposes of logic, I would like to see Monterey One Water make a decision one way or the other, sooner or later, February or March, whatever. They do have some new board members. We also have new board members. So we're looking at this thing in some fresh eyes, or with some fresh eyes tied to it. But I feel like we ought to be pretty constantly, I want to say organized, but kind of focused on what are our priorities. And our priorities are get a water supply sooner rather than later. Monterey One Water has the Pure Water expansion on its table right now. That's sooner rather than later, regardless of what John Tilley and others say about desal and Cal-Am and down the road. That's later. That's not sooner. The sooner we deal with the CDO, the sooner we deal with our water supply, the sooner we do an economical decision about what makes the most sense economically for our own community and what makes environmental sense for our own community, we should push forward as strongly as we can with Monterey One Water and helping them move this project forward. So that's kind of why I'm suggesting we deny this project for this board and push in the direction of working with Monterey One Water in every way we can. And that includes, I think, the potential of going to mediation if the disagreement continues to kind of hold hostage, I think, a water supply solution.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, go ahead, Vice Chair. You're on mute.
I agree completely with everything Director Riley just said, and I will support the motion.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, go ahead, Director Adams.
As much as I hate to disagree with Director Riley, I agree with the whole concept. I think my approach tends to be, I want to get more people on our side to help push Monterey One Water to come to agreement on the Pure Water Monterey expansion. And I thought that perhaps if we just postpone this, it at least shows that we're trying to work something out, that we're trying to go there rather than just saying, nope, we're not going to do this. That's just my opinion. The comment that you made about mediation, I always am interested when I hear that word. And I'm not sure when or how or what that would look like. But I just want to find common ground in a certain sense. And I cannot support the motion because I feel like that's coming down with the hammer. And I'd rather put a little velvet glove over that hammer. Thanks.
Okay, Director Adams. I believe in options 2 and 3, but I didn't like what was at the end of option 2 and 3. I didn't like it. We need to make a decision, and we need to make one tonight. I agree with the motion to deny. These other options about see if what they're going to do over at Monterey One, that's on the table too. Now I can see what they're going to do, but I'm not going to tell them what I'm going to do early in the game about if they say no. If they say no, the Coastal Commission say no, we know where we stand. Where we stand. This thing been put off for 6 months, and I'm not willing to, we had it put off until April. Why wait? Why wait? Why continue to wait and play games? I believe in moving forward. I know it's hard. I know it's hard for this district. But if I can do one water project, which we just finished, I can do this bypass if it's needed this bad. We build a water project that helps out. We can build this bypass, but I need to know what this bypass is being used for. We use an ASR for it, or whatever we use. That pipeline could be used for anything once it's been put in. And another thing, Cal-Am had it put in the SEIR, but they didn't want the SEIR. And now they're going to say, no, we don't want the SEIR, but we want the district to okay our addendum to build a pipeline, a bypass. No, you're playing both sides. You are playing both sides. And I don't like that. So we say no tonight, we'll put the ball in their corner and see where they're going to go. And I'm willing to listen to them, which way to go. But tonight, we're doing the right thing. This has been going for 6 months. I'm not going to let it go for another 4 months and then wait for this out. They decided not to bring their project to the Coastal Commission. Remember that. We put out for that. We said we will not do this project until we hear from the Coastal Commission. The day before the Coastal Commission, or we're backing out. No, we're not ready for you. This came up again. No, we're not ready for you. With Monterey One. Now it's in our hands. And I say no. Say no to it tonight. It can always, Director Riley said it right. It can always come back. It can come back. Okay, Director Anderson, I know you want to talk now. Go ahead.
I agree. And you said it so well, Director Edwards. I do agree with that. And I think particularly because of the additional things that were commented upon about what the pipelines would look like if the expansion was agreed to. That's more information that we would know that would be very, very, very helpful. But of course, we don't know what they're going to do. So I think rather than hitching it to, let's look at this after their next meeting, or let's wait for the Coastal Commission, that could be forever. That I agree with that. We can bring it back if we want to.
Okay. Any more comments? If no comments, roll call vote, please.
Director Adams,
No.
Director Ball,
Aye.
Director Anderson,
Yes.
Director Roberson,
Aye.
Director Riley,
Aye.
Director Edwards.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-1.
Motion passes 5-1. Thank you, board. General Manager, what's the next item?
The next item, item 15, is the discussion item related to options for election of Division 3 director. It's here primarily to send you the memorandum that Dave Laredo prepared that discusses the agony of trying to do a mail-in ballot for the very first time, which then kind of points you in the direction of if you choose to do an election, it would likely be November 2nd. We did hear back from the registrar's office today to a request that Joel Pablo put in. A standalone mail ballot election is $8 to $10 per registered voter. We have, and because if you read the memo, it would be a district-wide referendum on doing mail-in ballot elections with a division or a Division 3 only election of their director. So all 65,000+ of our registered voters would come in that $8 to $10 category, or potentially $6.5 million. A standalone election.
650,000.
I'm sorry, 600. Yes, 650,000.
No, we could have a whole water company for that.
Drop to zero. The standalone election for just Division 1 as an in-person polling and obviously absentee voting by mail is $14 to $20 per registered voter. We have 13,000 registered voters in District 3, so you can do that math. But 13,000 times 20 is going to be $26,000. Call it $30,000. In just as an example, no, I just dropped the digit the other way that time. Yeah. Sorry, I was being lulled to. We won't go there over item 14. Just so you know, in 2018, which was the Measure J consolidated election, the district paid $221,000, which actually comes out to $3.72 per registered voter. And in 2015, where we had a single division election with 9,749 registered voters in that, it was $44,605 or $45,000. So they can be, and that was $4.58 a voter. So we get estimates from the registrar that have proven to be higher than what we've actually been invoiced for these elections. But nevertheless, the range I gave you of 8 to 10 for a mail ballot or which would be division or district-wide, or a division-only polling place and absentee is that 14 to 20. So, you know, it's the cost of doing business, but there is a cost involved. Now, we do have to decide if we're going to appoint or call an election. We need to make that decision by February 12th. A failure to appoint or call an election could result in the county Board of Supervisors convening and making an appointment on our behalf. So to control our own destiny, we've got, you know, basically till February 12th. This is just informational to help inform your decision and discussion at the special meeting on the 28th.
So any board questions at this time? Director Adams, did you have your hand up? Okay. Any board questions? Okay, Jim, if we can't come up with a candidate, the election will be what month? November or?
Yes, it would be November 2nd.
November 2nd.
Yep.
So February the 12th is our cutoff. So we don't have enough time to put out for more applicants if we had to.
Yeah, not really.
Not really. Okay. Any other board questions? Go ahead, Director Paul, Vice Chair.
If we did want to interview any of the current applicants that we have, when would we do that?
On the 28th, they've been requested to be prepared to make a public statement in behalf of their own candidacy and answer any questions should the board have them. That's this coming Thursday.
So that means that we need to make a decision actually today about whether we want to interview any candidates on Thursday. Is that right?
Well, as I said, especially in this era of video conferencing, I've asked them all to be available. So you could make that decision that day and release them if you chose to, or have them each speak. There's 6 candidates, which I think you've seen now in that packet.
Yes.
Okay, any more directors? Okay.
Just one more question.
Go ahead, Director Anderson.
Just to clarify, if this is an election, there would be 2 issues. It would be the Division 3 voting on candidate, and it would also be the whole district, some precedent for mail-in ballots. Is that right?
That's if we chose to use the mail-in ballot option. The November 2nd date would be the first date, which is a traditional polling place style
okay.
election.
So we'd have the whole polling place superstructure to get together. I mean, the county one.
Right. And again, to, you know, try to dispel the confusion I just created, the mail-in ballot district-wide would be a little over $650,000. The standalone election Division 3 wide would be a little right around $245,000.
Okay.
And an appointment just costs you your time.
I need some candidates. Okay.
No, no point. Just if I could quickly.
Go ahead, Director Brown.
That saves time and money.
Yeah.
Thank you.
An appointment saves time and money.
Right. Okay.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
And I was just going to say, you're going to see in the next agenda item kind of the working calendar for the Measure J process. So if you do go for an election in November, you'll be 6 directors until that time. So you just may want to overlay the calendar that you're going to see next.
Okay, thank you. Let's open up to the public, Joe. Give them 3 minutes.
Right. So we have Mark on the line here. Before I allow him to speak, let me share my screen on my side here. All right, I'll allow Mark to speak. And Mark, please present your comment.
Okay, Joel, this is Mark. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Terrific. My last name is Eisenhart. You will all recognize that name as one of the 6 applicants. Thank you for listening to me. I understand that the tenure here is just less than 2 years if there's going to be an appointment. And I was wondering, and I'll give my question and wait to hear the answer. Is there an opportunity in the next 3 days between now and a busy hearing at the special meeting to meet either by email or Zoom or otherwise with the deciding members, the directors, these applicants, myself and the others? That's my question.
Well, we'll answer that at the close of public comment.
Thank you.
Who's out there next there, Joe?
Yes, so the next speaker that we have here is Michael Bear. So let me go ahead and reset the timer here, and I'm going to allow Michael Bear to talk. Michael, you may present your comment.
Yeah, I just have one brief question. I'm unclear why, if you're talking about Division 3 seat, why there needs to be a district, if, you know, one of the options was the district-wide $600,000+ election, when you're only, you know, what's the purpose of that if you're just placing someone from Division 3 and the Division 3 registered voters would be the one to choose that person? Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next on the line, we have Anna Thompson. Anna, you may present your comment.
Yes, I think that since elections are so expensive, and it's only for 2 years term at this point, why I prefer appointment over the election, and it will be quicker and we'll be able to save a lot of money too. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, seeing that there are no further raised hands, I'll return this to the board.
Okay, no other comments?
No other.
This is just a discussion right there.
Yes,
Manager?
correct.
Okay, no more on the discussion. We'll move along. Okay, oh, go back. Mr. Laredo, are you still out there?
Yes, I am, sir.
Could you answer that first question? Could the people we interview, can they contact us?
They can contact you individually, as long as they do not convey the content of any other discussions. If there was you want to avoid a serial meeting, my understanding is what is on the agenda for the 28th is exactly what the speaker had indicated, which was an opportunity to speak to the entire group. But the Brown Act requires that to be noticed and open and public, and that's what is on the agenda for the 28th.
Okay, and my next question is, why do we have to go out to the full district and ask that question about the mail ballot?
Okay, well, you don't have to go to the full, you don't have to go outside to the whole district as long as you have a regular precinct election. And the one and only opportunity for that is the November 2nd election. If you wanted to, the only way to hold the election earlier, and it's not all that much earlier, it would be August. But the way to do that would be to not have it be an all mail ballot election. And the elections code does require that the very first time you go to an all ballot election, that you then poll the entirety of your district and give them the opportunity to vote on whether this district will be able to do that into the future. So the cost of accelerating it from an election from November to August is having the election go to the entire water management district on the question as to should mail ballots be allowed. And then at that same time, there would be the all mail ballot only for within Division 3 to fill that vacancy.
Okay, thank you, sir.
And I'm sorry, it is rather convoluted, but that is the law.
Okay, Director Rowley, you got your hand up.
Can I don't know who gave these cost numbers. Can you give them again? Because I kind of made a note, but I didn't get the numbers. The district-wide election costs how much, and then the Division 3 is how much? Just
yeah, $652,000 for district-wide, and about $245,000 for Division 3 only.
Thank you.
Okay, this item is closed. Who else? Anybody heard of? Okay, this item is closed. What's next, GM?
The last item on the agenda, item 16, apart from informational items, is timeline on future decision points over public ownership of the Callahan Monterey water system. Joel Pablo will pull up a brief presentation that we can look at together. There we are. And first slide, or next slide. So this is progress to date. The measure was passed by the voters November of 2018. We used the subsequent full year pretty much to have listening sessions and do the work of demonstrating financial feasibility, which the report was released by Reftelis in November, and then they came and presented at our November 12th workshop in 2019, where financial feasibility was demonstrated. The board then elected in December of 2019 to authorize additional work, and we've been performing that work that was in the staff note, and it dealt primarily with appraisal services, both real estate and the enterprise value of the system, as well as the LAFCO application getting going under process. The CEQA compliance, we elected to do a full EIR, which extended the timeline. And the attorneys have been working on findings in support of public necessity should our board, you all decide that you want to head in that direction. And then also there were the two operations plans, one for integrating all of the Callahan employees and one for third-party operations if the Callahan employees are somehow mysteriously unavailable. All of that work is pretty well came together in October. However, they're going to be a little bit on hold as we work through the LAFCO process. So you did certify the EIR October 29th and elect to receive the operations plans. It had been moved to October just by the chair at the time to manage the board agendas. I think the EIR was ready in September, but we did it in October. It was at a late regular board meeting that we elected to move just the EIR and the operations plans to a separate board meeting on the 29th. With that board meeting and some of the comment that was made and letters that were received, we chose to certify the EIR but not approve and adopt the operations plans. And they were deemed to be works in progress or drafts, even though they were labeled final. And we have gone back in and made some adjustments based on things that we know operationally, as well as a clear statement that the intent is to not change any operations and operate it substantially in the manner it is currently operated, that it's merely an ownership change. So those changes were made in in November. I thought we'd be ready to go to submit the LAFCO application in December. The LAFCO staff made a specific request for some property tax distribution information, and in a more careful reading of our legislation, we raised questions whether the southern boundary was in fact what we thought it was, and what we've been using for the last 30 years. And it's been just under 2 weeks, and we're still waiting for that answer from our GIS consultant, which we expect sometime this week. So when we have that, we'll be ready to go. I think that we'll see a final draft application the beginning of next week, give the attorneys a chance to review it, and then it should be ready for submittal at the end of next week or shortly thereafter. So next slide. So LAFCO is really the critical path at this point. I've had several communications, both previously when we thought we were going to certify the EIR in the September timeframe, as well as most recently last week. And, you know, their process will take time. And this, what's reflected here is, I don't think it's aggressive, but I don't think it's capable of being shortened very much. And so what happens is, you know, they need time to review the application, deem it complete. Once it's deemed complete, they have to notice for 21 days for a hearing. And then once that hearing is held, there's up to 60 days of post-hearing administrative processes. So those green bars represent those 4 aspects of the LAFCO process. And I don't think there's a whole lot of play in those bars. So that's what we're looking at. One of the items for LAFCO, which needs to be complete for the application to be deemed complete, is a property tax transfer agreement with the County of Monterey. And I'd say we're just a little bit overdue with county staff for scheduling a meeting on that. We had a date for January 8th that got subsequently moved for the county to do some internal discussions, and we do not have a new date scheduled yet. The findings of public necessity won't take until August, but that orangish bar is shown that way simply because while we're waiting for LAFCO to do its deal, we have all that time available to us for the findings of public necessity. And same thing with the updating of the appraisal. So as I said, there's a real estate aspect and there's the enterprise value of the company aspect. Both are substantially complete, but they'll need to be updated. And so as we begin to learn what the LAFCO schedule is and what a realistic kind of final timeline is for LAFCO, we'll give enough notice to the appraisal staff to do their work. And then should the board elect to move forward, you would authorize a bona fide offer for the water system. And if that offer would be rebuffed, then the board would need to make the decision whether to hold a hearing to determine public necessity and begin a condemnation action. And again, that cannot happen until the district's latent powers are approved to sell retail water, despite that we've sold retail water to a limited number of customers in the Del Monte Forest for the reclamation project. So again, it's the green bars that give us the most concern. And then that yellow bar has to be complete before we get notice of complete for our application from LAFCO. So that's where our focus is going to be. That's not all that promising. I mean, I think we originally last year had expected to be in a position around May to have the offer go in if that's something you want to pursue, and then do the hearing for public necessity in the June timeframe. So we're off of that, roughly by 3 months, and it'll depend on what happens with the LAFCO process. I would like to schedule a closed session with the board in the March-April timeframe to discuss where the valuation has gone, what the conclusions of the preliminary appraisal are, all related to real property negotiations, just so the new board members will have a chance to see that work and discuss it.
Okay, any board questions? Go ahead, Director Ralph.
One question, and maybe it's more related to Dave Laredo than the general manager, but does the lawsuit that Cal-Am filed against the EIR process shed any light on anything that we should be doing? It's gonna be, I'm not looking for an explanation. I'm just asking, is that a help or a hindrance? And maybe I shouldn't get an answer to this, but that's my question.
I can't answer whether it's a help or an hindrance, but I can tell you that at the moment, there's nothing in the lawsuit that would change the timeline that has been presented to you. But it is possible, depending on where the lawsuit goes and whether there are any requests for immediate relief, it's possible that that could cause a further delay to that timeline. But at the moment, I don't believe it does have an independent impact on the timeline. We'll see where that has to go.
Yeah, I would add that it probably caused a 4-week delay, as it made us step back and reread the operations plans, put in a disclaimer. There may be some other things that need to get in there at the last minute, but and then it made us reconsider how thoroughly we want this review.
Without going, excuse me, without going back in time, we're talking about this point going forward.
Right. Yeah.
And this point going forward, I believe the timeline stands without modification unless there's some further change in the litigation stance.
Yeah, good point.
And then my last comment, Dave, General Manager, is what looks like the target date for submitting the final LAFCO application?
Yeah, I'm using the 4th, which is a week from Thursday, or the 5th. A lot of this writing gets done on the weekend, so it might end up being the 8th, which would be after one more weekend. But I do want to give the attorneys a chance to page through it, which is going to, I want to give them at least 4 days, 5 days if possible. So.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, any other board questions for the GM? Okay, Joel, let's take it out to the public, see if they have any comments.
All right, we'll take it out to the public, and I see Michael Bear wishes to make a public comment. But before I do that, let me go ahead and share my screen. And Michael Bear, when you're ready, please present your comment.
Yeah, it'd be nice to be able to see that timeline graph. But my question is about the investigation for public necessity, whatever the terminology was, that 4-month period where you're talking about using that time. And just a clarification about what that process is. How is the public involved in that? Is this stuff you're going to be talking about either in special meetings or during board meetings where we got a chance to give input? And what is the purpose of that process, and how can the public be involved? Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, seeing that there are no raised hands, I'll go ahead and return this back to the board.
Thank you, Joe. Any other questions, Jam?
Yeah, I'll just address the comment from the public. A lot of that input was done during the listening sessions way back in time. And, we took thorough notes from our public as to what's important and what's not. You may recall that we had an almost equal weighting of some things that were important to some folks that were equally not important to an equal number of other folks. The process of defining public necessity by its nature is basically going to be findings in support of the legal approach. Highly unlikely that that will be released publicly for public discussion until it's ready to go. And I don't know if Dave Laredo, if you've got any comment on that, but it's more of a legal document.
If I may, when you say ready to go, that's when it goes back to the board for review.
Yeah.
That will be done at a public hearing. There will be ample opportunity for the public to review what is staff's recommendation, what are the draft findings that are going to support that, and that can be augmented or that could be changed. So that's going to be a very open and public process.
Okay, just one final comment from me, GM or General Counsel, if y'all need any help with these public agencies and need a letter or something coming from this board about moving along, please ask for it and don't try to cover it up because we got a deadline we want to meet. We're not going to be slowed down. Okay? Any other board question? Okay, information items. Anybody want to pull any information items or staff report? Going once, going twice? If not, thank you, Joel. Thank you, Sarah. Good job tonight with our first meeting of Zoom. You did an outstanding job. Meeting adjourned. Y'all have a good night.
Thank you all.
Thank you.